Hey, so this video's topic is ecosystems, which is chapter 55. Um, so in this chapter, we're going to talk about um, energy and the trophic levels, as well as the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, as well as the water cycle. So yeah, let's get into it. As we continue on to energy and trophic levels, we're going to need to know the law of thermodynamics, which is energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred or transformed. So then, how does energy enter the ecosystem? Through sunlight or solar radiation. And how does it exit the ecosystem? Through heat. We're also going to know the law of conservation of mass, which is matter cannot be created or destroyed. Um, as well as we're going to know if all organisms require energy for growth, maintenance, as well as reproduction. So continue looking at this diagram right here. We see that there's the sun, and then the arrow above it says energy flows towards the primary producer, then goes to primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. And then it could go to detritus or microorganisms and other detrivores, and it's just a whole bunch of arrows going either way. Either it's chemical cycling or energy flow. We'll kind of get to what these primary producers, primary consumers mean. So we have the sunlight, which gives energy through the solar radiation to the primary producers, which primary producers are an autotroph, usually photosynthetic organism, which are plants pretty much. So then the autotrophs make up the trophic level, or an ecosystem that ultimately supports all the other levels. So if we wipe out primary producers, we have no other living things. So we're going to need the primary producers. Um, and then the primary consumers eat the primary producers. So primary consumers are herbivores like a rabbit, an organism that eats plants, photoplankton, or algae. So then from there we have the secondary consumers, which are carnivores, eat the primary consumers. So then secondary consumers are carnivores that eat herbivores. And then we have tertiary consumers, a carnivore that eats other carnivores. Kind of simple. We have detrivores and decomposers. So a consumer that derives its energy and nutrition from non-living like materials such as like corpses, fallen plants like logs, dead trees, and other waste of living organisms. So we can have feces and stuff like that. We also have detritus, dead organic matter. I included this photo or diagram that shows the terrestrial food chain and the marine food chain. So we're looking at the terrestrial side of the food chain. We see the plants, and then there's the herbivores, the carnivores, and then it goes on to other carnivores. So we have the prime producers. For the marine food chain would be like the phytoplankton, and it goes to the zooplankton. We have like the other carnivores leading up all the way to the killer whale. Okay, now we're going to start talking about the steps of the carbon cycle. Before that, we kind of need to know what the carbon cycle is in a simpler term. So all living things are made of carbon. Plants that die are get buried, turn into fossil fuels made of carbon. Like, we have coal, we have oil, they kind of fossilize through like many years, like millions of years pretty much. When humans burn fossil fuels, most of the carbon quickly enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. The steps of the carbon cycle. So we have the first step, which is carbon enters the atmosphere as CO2, carbon dioxide, from respiration and combustion. Then we have step 2, CO2 or carbon dioxide is absorbed by producers to make carbohydrates in photosynthesis. Producers put off oxygen. Then we have step 3, animal feed on plants passing carbon along the food chain. Most carbon is exhaled as carbon dioxide. Then we have the last step, step 4, dead animals, or dead organisms, eaten by decomposers in the ground, and carbon in the body returns to the atmosphere. Okay, so now we're going to go over the nitrogen cycle. Before we go over the nitrogen cycle, we got to know what nitrogen fixation is and nitrification. So nitrogen fixation is prokaryotes convert dinitrogen to minerals like amino acids. And then we have nitrification. Aerobic bacteria oxidizes ammonium into nitrate. So that's pretty much the two things you need to know before we go on to the nitrogen cycle. So the first step in the nitrogen cycle, we have nitrogen gases in the air, and the second step is bacteria in the soil turns into usable forms. The third step is bacteria makes it available to plants, and then we have consumers consume. The fifth step is consumers waste in high nitrogen, and six is decomposing waste in the body. The body put nitrogen back into the soil. These are pretty simple steps. They're kind of bullet pointed, so that way they're just kind of like, just there. Lastly, we're going to go over the global water cycle, or it's also known as just the water cycle. So the first step we have is evaporation, which is the process of turning from liquid to vapor. And then we have condensation, which is gas to water or liquid. Then we have sublimation or sublimate. I don't even know how to say it. Which is ice straight to water vapor, so it's solid into gas, pretty much. And we have precipitation, which is just rain, sleet. And we have transpiration, which is water into the plants and then to vapor. Then we have the runoff, which is water running over the Earth's surface. And lastly, we have infiltration, which is water soaks in the soil and it filters itself through the soil and then as well as the rocks. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed.